name is Vidhi Bogla. I just wrote Culture Trap, which released on Women's Day. And I'm super excited to be talking to you about my book. To introduce myself, I'm a journalist. I write for a lot of publications like Telegraph, WION, Asia Times, Modern Diplomacy. And this gives me the opportunity to go out there, meet new people, and be a part of the storytelling culture where they invite me into their homes and they share their stories with me. And I came up with the idea to write The Culture Trap, which is a book about women who are living in the Marwari community, women overall across the world and all of their struggles. I feel like as women, we share a lot of those common struggles and also a lot of common wins. And this book, The Culture Trap, is about that. And essentially, I started writing this book during the pandemic. And that's when a lot of women were also living in their homes and they were experiencing issues like either domestic violence or marital rape. And they invited me into their homes to talk to them. And for them, I was an outsider. I wasn't a part of the family. So they weren't scared of being judged and they weren't scared of sharing their story with me. They were very open about it. But I think that put me in a powerful position where I was someone who they trusted and they wanted to share their story with. And that's how this book came to me. After speaking to a few women, I realized there's so many women like this one living in rural India who are experiencing different struggles. And it's so important to highlight the story and to be talking about it. And I'll just start off without much ado with reading a few poems from the Culture Trap. So this is the illustration which goes with the poem. This one, I'm going to read this one to you, which is on page 13. It goes like, do you really think there will be a convenient time for you to think about things that have given you panic attacks in the past? My brain asked. The way you use the word brave made me stop wanting to ever be brave. Now I'll share a poem with you, which is on page 39. This is the illustration to the poem. I'll also read the one which is right by, which is about the ancient practice of sati, which has now been banned in India. I'm 33, a recurring nightmare. I'm inside a room with all my ancestral women, clad in saris and pallus in Rajasthan. One was a trans woman, but she wasn't able to tell the world that. But she whispers to me now, save us by saving ourselves and people around you. I look up at the sky, but all I see are dead bodies, corpses hanging from the sky, moaning loudly, like fake orgasms. I wake up. Then there's one which is on page 39, and that's the one I'm going to read now. Take out your pen and an empty notebook and allow yourself to bleed on that piece of paper. Take out an empty canvas, and all shades of paint you own, and pour your heart out. Drain it onto the canvas. This is how healing begins. I'll just share the story of this poem as well. It was written because there were a lot of women in rural India who were talking to me about how they don't have any time to practice their hobbies. Like, so they're so caught up with doing their own daily practice of cooking, raising children, or either spending time with their grandchildren. And I'm speaking about girls as young as 9 who don't have time for their hobbies because they're expected to be in the house, clean the house, help out the mother with cooking, or do household chores. Sometimes they don't even have time to study, let alone for their hobbies. And this is where that story comes from. There's a lot of agency which can be derived in our life by simply pursuing our hobbies and feeling like we know there's a space for us to do that. And it also helps us to create a sense of identity, right? Like, okay, I like scuba diving. That's my hobby. And I can derive a lot of purpose from my life from doing that. And also build my identity around it, build my life experiences around it. The same way, I think every woman should definitely have more hobbies, have time for herself, be able to invest in herself in ways that she likes. And this is a poem about that. It's about healing by practicing hobbies. So then this is one poem which I'm going to recite to you now. And it's on page 59. It comes with this beautiful illustration of a woman who's holding flowers. Mental health is not a choice. Stop blaming people for being depressed. Mental health is a state of being. Can you choose not to have cancer? Mental health is somewhat like that. Yes, you might avoid smoking if you don't want cancer, but some people who never smoked suffer with cancer too. You can't just choose to not have cancer. If you go to a doctor to cure cancer, why can't you go to a therapist for your mental health? And I'll tell you a short note about this poem as well. So, mental health is extremely stigmatized in India, and a lot of people, specifically women or marginalized communities, experience a lot of stigma in approaching a therapist. And they think it's like going to someone for being crazy. They don't realize that um, mental health is all about therapy and it's about healing yourself. It's about experiencing a better version of yourself and growing. And this poem comes from a sense of destigmatizing mental health. That's what I've, as the author, tried to do in the poem. Because I think mental health is also like a human right, and everyone deserves good mental health. And if there are certain ways in which we can achieve it, like by going to therapy or by going to healers, people should definitely do it. Like, there's no two thoughts about it. Just like we need to be healed from physical ailments like cancer, which might be curbing us and putting us back in some way. The same way, mental health can also do that. It can, a good mental health can either take like people 10 steps ahead by creating growth in their life, and bad mental health can just mean someone's not able to accomplish their dreams and do what they want. So either ways, like, we need good mental health. Then I'm going to read this poem to you, which is on page 76. Again, comes with this beautiful illustration. And this one's about mental health as well. As you can see, the illustrations about someone who's laying in bed and they're not able to get up, and they're probably lying in a pool of their own pee. And the poem goes like, I was afraid of therapy. I was afraid of being gone mad. I couldn't tell anyone I needed therapy until things got so bad. I couldn't get up from bed when my throat was drying up or when I needed to pee. I was numb till I finally made that call that required so much courage. My therapist slowly reminded me that I was worthy of my own life. Going to therapy should not be an act of courage. Destigmatize therapy. Well, I was letting that sink in. Then I move on and narrate this poem, which is on page 91. It's a short poem, comes with a beautiful, huge illustration. And this poem's very, very close to my heart because it's about self-love. And it's something I've struggled with for a while. I think everyone struggles with self-love because we're all experiencing trauma and issues on a daily basis and different things we have to deal with. And in that process, self-love just feels like a luxury. It feels like, how do I love myself when I'm experiencing so much? It's so challenging. But I think it takes a lot of healing to realize and recognize what self-love is like and to reach there. And this one poem goes like, it's really short, but reading it again makes me feel uh, connected with myself. To learn self-love, one must first overcome low self-esteem. And that's all this poem says, but I'll read it again so that it hits you this time. To learn self-love, one must first overcome low self-esteem. And the reason I love this poem so much is also because there's so many of us who feel guilty for being happy in a world where there's so many issues. Like, even now, there's a war going on in Gaza, in Ukraine. And to think about it, feel like, do we really have the right to be happy? You know, there's so many struggles in the world. And what makes me different from any of them? Why am I chosen to live in India and like born with this luxury where it's like peaceful here comparatively to places like Gaza and Palestine? And I just think we find reasons to not allow ourselves to be happy sometimes, to feel bad, to feel guilty about life, sometimes life being good. And that's something we need to overcome. And when our self-esteem gets better, that's when life also starts to get better in many ways. I'll read this poem to you, which is on page 19, really close by the other poem I read, which was the right next page. This is the illustration on the page. And as you can see, the illustration is a small flower, which is growing into a big flower. and then completely blooming into this beautiful flower with all the petals out and beautiful colors the way I imagined it. Obviously, the book has black and white illustrations, but you can fill your own colors in and use it as a coloring book for therapy as well, which I think is really cool. So, this is how this poem goes. It says, how can I expect you to stay the same when I can't even relate to the person I was back in January? Now in March, same year, same, some take a day to grow, some take months, some take a year. Take your time. It is okay to outgrow them. You are a hydrangea born to bloom into the awe-inspiring existence that you already are. Now, the reason I love this poem is because it's about healing and it's also about growth. At one point, maybe I felt like this little flower out here. And I felt like I knew I was great, but I didn't know I was capable of being this. And I was capable of being this much bigger flower and being so much more happy in my life. And then finally, I bloomed from being this person to being this person, which is like an even bigger flower, right? And I'm saying life is a little like that. Like when we see life from one point in time and we're experiencing our struggles, we might not realize that we're capable of so much more. And that future ours is going to look like this big gigantic flower, but life can get there easily. And the whole point about growth is that once I am this person, now that I'm this person, I don't even relate to the person I was this time. And I think about it and go like, how is my ambition so tiny? But I think at the same time, it's appreciated to realize that I'm coming to here, which is this big flower from here. And that's the power of growth, right? Because in a way, we're changing every day, we're growing every day. And sometimes the person we turn into is not even relatable to the person we were like maybe 3 4 years back. And I think that's beautiful. Then there's this poem which I'll narrate. This is going to be the last one before I just tell you a little more about this book and, end with final notes. This poem is on page 95 and it comes with the illustration of a girl who's sitting inside a coffee mug and there are flowers growing on top. And I think it's beautiful because coffee and tea in itself, like even traditionally represents healing because people have green tea every day and it's a way to calm down, like jasmine chamomile tea. And it's just really interesting to see that. So the poem goes like, should I be sorry for not giving trigger warnings in my book? How can I give trigger warnings when abuse is so deeply normalized in my life? And I think this poem encapsulates this whole book where there are lots of issues that are being discussed. Like there's obviously an issue of which is experienced by the LGBTQ community where they're ostracized, issues like mental health. Then there is also child marriage. There's the ancient practice of sati, which has now been banned in India, or like female infanticide. And gender inequality, which persists in so many ways and forms in our society. And the reason I wrote this poem is because I realized a lot of these issues that we heard about in newspaper as well, like newspapers don't come with trigger warnings. You know what you're getting into when you wake up in the morning and you open the newspaper. It's just going to be a pile of sad stories most often, but we never really think, okay, I'm going to read this and my whole day is going to be impacted by it, right? Or the same way, like this book's about healing and it talks about a lot of issues from the lens of gender inequality. So it can trigger some people at the end of the day. But I think that's what the power is of writing a book like this, where at the same time, we realize how deeply these issues exist in society. And at the same time, we also realize how important it is for us to be solving these issues and, working on spreading more awareness about what healthy practices are. And I'm just so happy I've published this book because it means so much to me as my contribution to the world. And also, it is something that I want to share with every woman and man in terms of a very gendered role, every person who's LGBTQ, and people who identify in different groups like this, because we all identify as some gender or the other, even if gender fluidity is there. And I think it's very important for us to read a book like this to learn gender sensitization as well as make our own lives better with healing. So thank you for having me here.
you.